me start all over then.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for the online grant management system training, specifically for the Comprehensive Community Correction Act and Pretrial Services Act grant. This is a repeat of this morning's training, so just so you know. I'm looking forward to providing this training so that the transition from OGMS to OGMS goes as smoothly as possible. Please keep in mind, as we will, that this is a new system, so we appreciate your patience during the transition process. A little bit of housekeeping before we actually begin. We're using the Zoom webinar function, so that means everybody is muted. We will be recording the training and it will be made available at a later date on our DCGS website. If you have questions that you want answered, please put it into the Q&A section. You can see it's located at the bottom of the screen in the red circle, so that we can respond to them after the first section, which is specific to the application. Hopefully some of the questions that you have will be answered by then, but certainly put them into that Q&A section, not in the chat. If we can't answer the questions live or in the chat, in the question and answer section, we will be posting a frequently asked question document at a later date so you can access that. Just as a reminder, all CCCA and PSA agencies will be applying for the FY 2022 funding in OGMS, but continue using GMS for the FY 2021 grant reporting, request for funds, and budget amendments. So you'll finish out your current grant in GMS. The exception is that agencies receiving expansion funding will submit status reports and claims for the expansion funding grant in OGMS. Before we get started, I'd like to I'm doing a poll. It's anonymous, so please go ahead and answer. Have you attended or watched the general training for OGMS yet? Give it a couple more seconds. Though I don't know who's responded, I can see 2 people haven't. Okay, I'm going to end. So it looks like 88% of everybody on the call today has actually attended the training. So I want to make sure everybody understands the purpose and the format of this training. We are not covering the material that has been covered in the generic training or the general training, as it takes away from the time we have to spend on covering the CCCA PSA elements that are specific in OGMS. As you can see from the agenda, we are going to cover the application process, the claim process, the status reporting requirements for CCC PSA, both financial and programmatic. And as I indicated earlier, this training will only cover the CCCA PSA grant. We will be unable to address or answer any other grant program questions other than to say, please contact your grant monitor. Just as a note, timeliness is everything, so be aware that this training is going to focus primarily on the grant application process. More so than the claims and status reports, because those are more time sensitive right now. We do plan on holding another training on status reports and claims at a later date. So I will be touching on them a little bit today, but not as in depth as I do the application. One of the things that came up during the general training is that, and we already knew this, but there's terminology changes that are going to occur or have occurred with OGMS. So we created this crosswalk so that you can see what the terminology you currently use is and what the new terminology will be in OGMS. Please This is posted on the DCJS website under grants in the OGMS training and resource section. So please make sure you have it, because I'm sure it'll be helpful as you do your application and as we monitor, as we go through the system. So let's begin. So the first thing that you will do when you sign in with your sign in and password is you'll get to this dashboard. And what you need to do at this point is select from the left-hand corner funding opportunities, which will then let you see the funding opportunities that you are eligible to apply for based on all the information you put in when you registered. Once you click on CCCA PSA, you'll get to this screen, and unless you've already started an application, you will want to click the Start New Application button. If you've already started one, you will have it up above, and you can click that on and continue editing that. Just for your information, the good news is that we have activated the ability for you to copy existing applications, but that won't go into effect until next year. So even though you're putting a lot of information in this year, you'll be able to just continue that. You'll be able to copy that in the future. In addition, you can cut and paste from other documents into OGMS, just so you know. That's a nice extra convenience. The other thing you see on that funding opportunity is the description of what you're applying for. And in this case, it'll give you the link to the solicitation, which is on our website. And then the attachments that you will have to upload. Again, there's another link there. And if you noted on this page, you'll see it says ask a question. So one of the ways you can get information on a funding opportunity inside this section is click ask a question. What will happen is a question will be submitted and your grant monitor will get it. And we can select, we can either opt to answer it privately or put it on the question page here. So you can see that we've got one submitted and responded to. So that way it's a good place for you to go for a quick frequently asked question thing for the immediate funding opportunity. So after you click that on and you say start new application, it will take you to the application creation wizard, which when it works really well. But here's the thing, it's a three-part session. The first one, you put in application title and your primary contact, who is the person who's going to be daily responsible for the grant. So usually that's the director of the agency. The next page will put you in the application stage and the application title and primary contact, which you've already selected, but it gives you the option to select the organization that you're with, which is your city or county. Right now, this is not functioning. They've been trying to get this fixed for our grant, so just hold tight. There's a workaround. You don't have to finish it to get to the next step. And the final one is to go ahead and select other people that have registered in OGMS and have been associated with your organization that can also contribute to the application and look at it. So you will know that that's also being fixed for CCCA PSA grants. We will let you know. Again, it won't stop you from continuing. So once you get to this point, and you'll get an error message that says, you know, this is required, just hit the go back button, which is on the screen, and it'll give you, put you here. So you can see that even though I haven't completed that, it still let me do all that. So this is a quick snapshot of your grant application and all the components to it. If you select app list, you'll get a really pretty list of what you have to do. So it'll give you the component, it'll give you the status. As you can see, it says the general information is complete, and it'll say last edited, and it will give you a name. So at this point, I want to reassure you that most everything you're going to see in this application is what you already do. It's just a little different way of doing it and different ordering. But once you get the general information put in, you can select any of these components and fill them out at as you wish in any order that you want, not in each. So personnel, you'll have a particular order that you have to do. So the first thing we're going to do is fill out your face sheet. If you look at this, it's pretty much the same information that you've always had in your face sheet. When you get down to the jurisdiction served, in order to select more than one, please hold down the control button. That's just the way the programming is working for this. Fill out the rest of it. Community setting, select all that is applicable. And when you get down to type of application, you will select continuation of grant. And when you select that, it will ask you for your grant number and a performance statement. Please put your current CCCA PSA grant number in there. Do not put your expansion grant number in there. And at this time, the performance statement is not finalized. We will have the grant monitors notifying you and letting you know what, if anything, to put in there. And then again, going to a brief project overview, which is exactly what you currently do on that front page of the face sheet. Notice in all of these boxes, there are limits, and these are characters and not words. So those of you that like to write a lot, you might need to find an editor. Okay, again, on the face sheet, you'll be putting information in for your project director, administrator, and your finance officer. This is the director of the agency. Your project administrator is your city manager or county administrator, and then your finance officer related to the grant. And for each of those, you'll have to select whether or not it is their mailing list, and if not, put in the new information. We're trying to get all the data that we can to make sure it's all up to date. So that's the face sheet, and essentially everything except the budget summary, which is what we're going to move into next. This is usually what you have at the bottom of the face sheet. It's a little bit different format, but it's essentially the same information. So what you will do is put in the DCJS funds, which is the funds you're getting from the state, match, which is local cash match, which are your fees. It's just the title, match, and then match in kind. So you know in kind are the non-cash items contributing to the grant. Now, match is not required with the exception of Wise and Albemarle, but you are required to put the local funds contributing to the operations of CCCA, PSA, and supervision fees in this budget. And then once you put it in, this is just one of the grids. You can mark it as complete, and it will tell you what you've matched as far as local funds and fees and in kind. That's just an informational thing right now. This is really set up very similar to all the other grant applications and the budgets that do require matches. So for those that have to have a particular match, this is a check on that. And then there's funds from other sources. Unless you have, if you have any additional funds that are not put in on that initial sheet here, then go ahead and put that in here and add a row and put it in there. I don't think there are going to be very many. Some of you might get federal grants that is not accounted for in the original budget that you might want to put in there. Okay, so there you go. Actually, this is mistitled. It should say, oh no, this is right. Project narrative. Now we're moving into the actual grant application. You go in there and what you see is demonstration of need, project description, service area, sustainment plan. Please go to the application solicitation and find the instructions for that. At this time, the demonstration of need is an NA for your grants. The sustainment plan, we have asked for you to include information on adaptations you've done locally due to COVID, and then any long-term plans that might incur based on your new practices. New this year are goals and objectives. As you all saw in the grant solicitation, we've provided a few goals and objectives. They're new and they're old again. We used to require these, and now we're going to go back to requiring this because this is something that you will report on quarterly. When you go in there, you'll check yes, they're required, and then you'll get this particular menu item and you'll say add row. And in here, you'll put a grant number, which right now are I think there's 4 for pretrial and 2 for probation, but don't quote me on that. And you'll fill all that out. Month in which implementation occurs, you may leave blank right now, or you can put July. And one of the things that you can do, because I don't know if you noticed, you only get 250 characters for each of those descriptions. So for some goals and objectives, you might need more space. So you can have multiple goal ones, and you can have sub goals of that go with that goal. So you can go into different elements and objectives of each of those goals. So that will be how you can expand on or add your own. Again, I remind you, you'll be reporting on those in the quarterly progress report. Okay, now we're here into the itemized and narrative budget. So one of the good things about this new system is that you get to put everything in at one time. There's no longer going to be 2 itemized budgets and 2 narrative budgets. When you go in to the actual budget elements, each one will have this particular heading at the top. Is it requested? Yes or no. If you select no, you will not have to answer anything in there. It'll just skip you to the next one. So we'll start with personnel. I'm just going to go in the same order in which they appear. What you do is when you select yes, personnel is required, it will give you this header row here. And what you want to do is add a row. And when you do that, you'll get these boxes here. They're actually on top of each other, but I didn't have space on a slide. So what you're required to put in is in red: name, title, position, full-time or part-time. Hours per week, if applicable, is not required and technically not applicable for CCCA PSA grants. This is more for federal grants, but this was just the template they used. We do want hours per year. In most cases, it's 2080 if it's full-time. And I do know that there are some agencies that do 1950. And then the total annual salary. That means everything. So if you're getting paid $100,000 a year, but 50 of it comes from another grant, we still need to know that's your full salary and the percent being requested from the grant funded hours per year. And this will give in the total amount requested from the grant. So even though you're giving us a percentage, it's a double check on here. So this is the beauty of it. Over here, you will be splitting up the amount for that one position. So let's say that position is dually a probation and pretrial person, 50-50. You would split everything up 50-50 in here if that's how you've actually budgeted it. So boom, you've got that person in. It is recommended that you do have to put a person in before you can then do the next step, which is the position and justification. Because what you'll see here is a drop down. You select that person's name and then you add the description and the justification. Again, this is not much different than the application narrative you already put in. If there's not enough space, let us know. But generally 500 characters, what does that person do and why do you need it? Your grant monitor will actually get back with you if it's something that we need more information on. Then the next one is the fringe benefit. And one of the things we noted when we were getting this put in is that some local agencies currently, well, all local agencies currently report their fringe as a lump sum for all staff in the different categories. If you can divvy it up and list them individually, that would be great. But if you can't, we're allowing you to put in, a person called fringe benefit. And so I did an example of that. So you'll put somebody in as an employee called fringe benefit. You'll put no salary or anything in there, but they'll be available to select for fringe on this list. You could select that person, that as it, sorry, you can select the fringe benefit as the person, and then put in all of the amounts for each of these particular categories. And same thing here, you can split it out by state match, state, cash, fees, and in kind for both probation and pretrial. Something to keep in mind, and this was hard for me to adjust, is when you're looking at this, it's going this way. So this will be your pretrial total, and this will be your probation total, and it kind of rolls over this way. So if you've got $100,000, you can see it's 50, 50. Okay, we do have consultants in here, and we have split consultants from consultants. Generally just their salaries and costs, and then consultant subsistence, lodging, and meals. Not very many of you guys have any consultants that you do that with. So it's kind of set up the same way as the personnel folks. So you would put in the name and their hourly wage. And if they had overnight things that you needed to pay for, it would go in here, and then it would be split up for each of those by probation and pretrial. And here again, you would select the consultant that you put in over here and then do the justification. Local mileage is now called travel. So everything under travel right now is only local mileage in this system. You do the same thing, and you would put in the number of miles, the mileage rate. This is exactly what you already do, except instead of two different budgets separate, you would put them both in here and then do a description, same thing that you put in now. Subsistence is actually separate now, which used to be right under the travel. So you would be putting in information for any trainings or events that you go to. You would say, you know, the justification. Other travel costs are included if you have to travel there and stuff, and then the justification. So a question came up about event title. That's a label. Right now, what you put in your grant is usually training, and you specify a type of training, or you put in that you're going to go to a conference and maybe specify APPA conference or something. That's really all you need to do here. You just have to, those things in red are what you have to put in. It would be nice if you knew any of that, but we do know these would be estimates at this time, and then split it for probation and pretrial. Then you would select that event. So if you put in training, you would select training. You put a description of what the costs are for, and the justification. And then if you had events that were required travel, you would do the same thing, and you would put that in there. Put in your Google is your friend if you need to get an estimate on the airfare and stuff. And again, select the event title and then describe what it is. Equipment. What you see now is that I have put in a sample for PTCC 1%. And it really simply was PTCC 1% description. That's what's required, and this is what's required. If you have other information related to that, please feel free to put it in the description for the review. But your equipment will go in just the way it is now. If you look at the actual items that you put in, you would put in printer or computers, and you put in how many, and then you put in the amounts, and the same thing here. Right now, the attached file is not required, not for these grants at this time. If there's ever a time we need something uploaded related to a piece of equipment, we will certainly let you know. But right now, that's not required. Again, if there's any questions about how to put something in, please contact your grant monitor. We'll certainly help you. You can certainly look at last year's grant and start putting the same stuff in. So when you look at what I put in, here's a sample of what I did for the PTCC. You can see the work I put in. It's again 500 characters, so you can see that my one little sentence for both only took up a little bit of space, but it's not 500 characters is not a lot of space. Okay, and then we get to supplies and other. And no, we don't need to know that you're buying 12 pens at $1 each. We want you to continue with the same practices you currently do, where if you are doing supplies, I think the thing is $50 a month per FTE. You put that in underneath here. Item supplies are requested are office supplies, $50 per 12 months. And then how much? And over here, when you select that particular item, you would then put in the description what you're buying. Like for supplies, you would, probably want to put, we're buying pens and paper and all that kind of stuff. And then the justification, really simple, we need this for our operations. And then the final one on the budget is the indirect costs. So what you can see here, it's very simple. You are only allowed to put in 1% of your total grant for indirect costs for state funds, but you certainly can put in more and others in there. So now we're into a little new section. Don't forget, if you have questions so far, you can put them in the question and answer part. But we're going to move into the final part of the grant that's a little bit new to most all of you. So what you see first here is MOU for PTCC. It's required. We'd like everybody to upload the most recent or the current signed copy of your MOU for PTCC, so it's in the system. That way, if anybody needs to go back and find it, it's there. For those agencies that are not part of the local government, they will need to upload a MOU for non-government services. And then we're asking again for your most recent CCJB list. So those would be all uploaded. You see only these two are required because that's from everybody, and the MOU is not required, but you guys know who you are. At this time, we don't have any other attachments that you're required to upload. That may change if we decide we want, for example, the expansion grants are being folded into the actual base grant that you have. So we may want your implementation plan just uploaded just so we have it there. So when you get to this attachment required, which is before this, you would say yes, because you do have some there. Excuse me. So this is sort of new, the non-supplantation certification. And again, this is another reason why your project administrator, your county, your city manager, or your county administrator must register in the system, because they are the ones that actually can sign for the grant and sign the contract saying they accept it. The next one is certification of compliance that is also signed by the project administrator. And you can see there are different things to go to here. Some of this is already included in the special conditions you all got last year, as far as EEOP, is that right? Anyway, you can look at that, check yes. And then this authority certification. This is the final signature. This is what usually you get signed, your face sheet signed by the person who has the signatory authority with DCJS. So that's why if their name is typed in here, they have to have an account and they have to make sure that they approved it. Some localities will probably want a paper and pencil thing. You can print it out and have a signature and keep it local, but we're only doing this through the OGMS. So that's the end of the application part of the training. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Oops. So please do put some in there if you want. I see Tisha has put in the chat information on where the link to the actual page on our website for training and resource information. I'm going to take a drink of water and we'll just continue on. So now we're going to do grant management. I don't know why I put that slide in there. I think it got put in by mistake. Grant management, what does that mean? That means once you've applied for your grant And what has to happen before it actually gets to an award is your application will be finalized and approved and emailed in. Your grant monitor then will get the grant and review it for completeness. If there is anything that needs to be edited, changed, or added, your grant monitor will send you an email directly right away and have you negotiate that back and forth to get it actually appropriate before it's accepted at DCJS. We do want you to try to get things in early, but we do understand that, you know, this is a new system. So just know once you submit it, there may be still some things that you have to do. So don't go on vacation right after you submit it, unless you can leave somebody in charge. So once you get it and you get an award, what happens next is that you'll have to do status reports and claims. And just like the grant application, there's a general information sheet as well. So we're going to go through the status reports, the first one being the program status report. So what you see here is, again, you put in the title of, I mean, not the title, the quarterly report, and then the quarter that you're reporting for, save form, and your general information is complete. And then there are attachments for that. So what you do is after you click that on, oops, sorry, you'll click attachments and you'll get here. And what you'll see is there's nothing required, but there is. So what we want you to do is go ahead and upload your quarterly progress report, the one you currently do, but do not put it in PDF or anything. What I've done here is shown that this new system allows you to upload everything. I only did 3. I did a Word document, Excel spreadsheet, and a PowerPoint, but it's not limited like the OGMS system is. And in fact, we do want your reports submitted as a spreadsheet, because that makes it easier for everybody. So you would just put, add a new attachment, upload it, put a description in, and hit save file, and then mark as complete once you get everything in. One of the things that you're going to add if you're an expansion grant is the implementation plan as an attachment. It's the same process. And then the next part of the grant, if you remember, this is the global progress report form. And what you do here is just give us some information on the process and progress of your grant, whether you're an existing grant or you're an expansion grant. This is just a summary, couple of summary pages, and you can see it's 500 characters in each box, so it's not a lot of information, but all grants have this global form and to put it in one common way. And then this year, as you all know that have reviewed the solicitation, we have added goals and objectives. As I said before, you'll report on them every quarter. So when you get to this part in the status report, you'll see that it has goals and objectives. You select it, you do add row, you put in the goal number, and then you report out on the progress. You can put in information on barriers and progress. And down here, because it's required, you can say month the implementation step occurred is when you either started that goal or July, because that's when your grant started. So now we're going to go through a little bit of the financial reporting process. It's very similar and simple, like you do currently in OGMS, but then there's some additional steps later. You will put in the quarter that you're reporting on, a beginning cash balance, which at the beginning of the year is the grant, state grant funds. Put in, at this point, you do not have to put any receipts for income in. That's not going to be used, but you'll put in a list of expenditures as they have occurred. And this is the summary budget that you're working on. So when we get into the claims, that's the second part of your financial reporting. What I'm showing you here is if you hit this, you'd get that really pretty list I showed you earlier, but you'll see that it's all laid out here. But what you're looking at are current claims against the grant. What you're going to do is say, add a new claim. Again, you'll put in the reporting period, the type, the final request. And here are the elements that you have to put into a claim. When you click it, you'll see this is your approved budget, the summary budget. So you see it's at high level right now. You'll hit edit reimbursement. And because we didn't have any money budgeted in the probation budget, for simplicity's sake, everything that you have money budgeted for has a box that you can put money in. So we did not have anything approved in that line item. You can't spend anything out of it. So you would put in what expenses you had for the period, and then hit save. Sorry, I'm watching my mouse. Hit save, and then when you're done, mark it as complete. So you can see this is what you were approved to get in personnel for the year. This is what your expenses were. This is what's available. It's still the first quarter, I guess. So it gives you sort of the information that you need for, it's an ongoing running total. And then when you get to the next step, if you've put the claim in for personnel, consultant, travel, and the other subsistence, those are the ones we put claims in for here. So it matches up with that. Although I don't know why I put subsistence. What it will ask you to do is give us what you've spent in there for each of those. And then you'll have a final personnel expenditure list. Okay, that's the simple part. That's the quick and simple overview of claims and status reports. Like I said, we plan on doing another training specific to those a little bit later, closer to when they're due. As promised, I wanted to go over real quickly. Is there any questions about that either? Okay. Did I register correctly? I do want to apologize because in my haste to make sure everybody had the information, I provided the wrong link for you to go to register for OGMS. I checked right before this training started, and everybody associated with CCCA and PSA that applied for a registration login has been approved. So if you applied and you're still waiting, please reapply, but do it at this link. This is the link that you can register at, and this is also the link you go to log in. So this is the one link to rule them all. Wait, that's a different book. And I apologize if you have been trying to register and it hasn't worked. And a little bit of an overview, because this was also confusing, not just for you guys, but a lot of other agencies that were registering for different grant programs. Because of this system is targeted at those eligible to get the grants, what we want you to understand is the organization that you are associated with is the city or county that receives the CCCA and PSA grant funding. So that means you're the agency that gets it. It could be that this is a sheriff or a jail. And then you're the person, you put your personal information for your agency address in there. And they could have more than one person doing that. Just so you know that the organization is a nomenclature piece that goes to the city and county. The other thing I wanted to do with a bonus slide is show you, this is what is currently on our DCJS website. You can see that we've already got some training documents, and we actually have both of the general training videos you can watch. And I went through early on and showed you how you can ask a question when you're actually in OGMS for that particular funding opportunity. But there's also OGMS support at dcjs.virginia.gov that you can send emails related to the system. Now, one of the things I want everybody to know, and I've been made aware of, and I ran into this, is, like I said, the organization, when you do the application wizard, is not working yet. and you can't assign somebody else to help you with the grant. So whoever is the point person and starts the grant is the only person that can add to the grant or look at it in the system until we get that fixed. And as soon as that gets fixed, I will certainly make sure everybody knows that they can go out there. And if we can't fix it so that it gets done, we'll let you know how to do that. And here's bonus slide number 2. This is your login. And what I didn't show you earlier is that there are announcements. And these are all the announcements that are out there right now. Some will get taken off at some point, but you can see we're the first group that gets the funding, the specific training for your grant application. So again, it's being recorded. Anybody who needs to watch it again as they go through it is more than welcome to do that. Okay, and that's the end of that particular grant section training. Is there any questions? Hearing none, that's the end of my presentation. I do thank you all for being here. And look, you guys get even more time back. Should I wait a minute and see if anybody has any questions? Yes. Did you say only one person? Until we fix the section that you hook your application to an organization, and then you can select from those folks that actually have registered under your organization can be selected to be other people that will contribute to the grant. Please go in and practice, move around. At any time you can back out, go back, I think is the label. It won't save your changes. Anytime you get something done, save it. You can always go back in and edit it until you put it in. Since you got a little bit of extra time back, maybe what you can do is go practice right now. Again, submit questions to the OGMS support at dcgs.virginia.gov. We have a big problem in Arlington. Well, we're going to get that fixed so you guys can take care of that. No worries, because you can put in the probation budget and the other folks can put in the pretrial budget. Okay, well, thank you guys. Have a great afternoon and go forth, and don't forget to call your grant monitor if you have questions. The DCGS folks, do you mind staying on afterwards so that we can debrief? And I thank you all.